Since I'm new to the Hagerty channel, I should probably introduce myself. I'm Tony Angelo. I grew up as like a car-obsessed maniac kid. Bought my first hot rod at 15, was super into hot rods, and worked at a Porsche shop as a teenager. Somehow wound up into turbo rotaries, which thrust me into drifting. I became one of the first American pro drift racers, and then a stunt driver. I spent about 10 years being a drift racer and stunt driver till 2015 or so. Spent 6 years hosting a show called Hot Rod Garage on Motor Trend, and the last year, sometimes Roadkill, the last year, I've been doing my own Stay Tuned YouTube channel, and the guys at Hagerty said, bring that whole channel over here and we'll make a cool show out of it. And I said, let's do it. And here we are. Excuse me, I have wrenching to do. Welcome to Stay Tuned. I'm Tony Angelo, and today we're going to be working on one of my all-time favorite cars, my 1974 Street Freak Firebird. Now, I scooped this thing up for $1,000 off of Facebook Marketplace a couple of years ago, and it is an absolute time capsule from 1983 that this guy built, painted meticulously, went through, made this insane Street Freak show car out of, blew the motor up in '92, and just parked it. Parked it, no engine in it, and it was essentially just left to rot. I bought it, it hasn't seen a motor in 30 years, and I have to put the perfect one in there. Now, it's got a giant hole in the hood for a blower, and it's about as Pontiac gets. So I want to build a Pontiac blower motor, and I called the only people you got to call for that. Butler Performance in Tennessee. Those guys live and breathe high horsepower Pontiac engines. That's what they do. We actually hooked up. They came through with a ton of parts and even more expertise and helped me build a 462 cubic inch stroker motor that once we build a supercharger on top is going to tear the roof off this place. And let's see how we did it. Okay, it's actually already in there, but let's see how it came together. Ow, don't put it on my finger. Wow. A family show. So I bought this car without an engine, just a sweet looking roller, and I had to figure out what I'm gonna put into it for a power plant, right? And obviously the easiest way to go is LS, Chevy big block, Chevy small block. They bolt in very easily. They're super easy to get. They're super easy to get parts for. They're cheap and they make a ton of horsepower. And for some reason that doesn't feel right to me. Cheap, easy to get, very powerful. Feels really wrong here. Yeah. And so we had to stick Pontiac.
Yeah. I don't know the first thing about Pontiacs, but I can relate being a Mopar guy.
I know.
Everything costs 5 times as much.
Yep. I picked up a 1975 Pontiac 400. It's the last of the strong blocks that you could build for big power. And it was crusty and awful and disgusting inside. It didn't look anything like this. And I tore it all apart, but I really had a good starting point. The 400s, you can put a ton of stroke into them. You can make big power with them. Like I said, this is a strong block, and we have modified this thing to really put out some power. So my guy Larry at the machine shop.
See you, Larry.
Thanks, Larry. He had assembled this short block for us. It's Eagle rods, Eagle crank, and some Ross Machine racing pistons that Butler helped design. Mike is dropping in some solid roller lifters, and we'd love to put this thing together. Larry's still messing around with the heads a little bit. I poured it and polished a set of 6X heads that came on this engine, and he's doing a little more fine tuning with them, decking them, putting in bigger valves. We got this engine last night, and as quick as we could, we stripped it down, painted it, made it look halfway decent. So I'm just gonna install the front cover. Going through this motor, it's honestly looks awesome. It's such a burly setup. I can't wait to see this thing make power. I've only really driven some very mild Pontiac 350s and 400s. But this thing is gonna make serious horsepower. I cannot wait. Even with ported iron heads, with the blower, this thing should make well over 650 horsepower. I'm very excited. I have a little shellac on here. I put it on the wrong side. This gasket only goes on one way, so I'm gonna make a little bit of a mess here.
It smells terrible too, doesn't it?
Yeah, I don't think you're supposed to touch it so much as I am.
That's how you know it works.
So before I cover up all this cool hardware, let me tell you what we've got going on here. This is an Eagle forged crankshaft. We've got the new 4D Eagle rods, supposed to be stronger than the H-beam design. Ross Machine Racing, custom Butler only pistons, and we've got a little secret cam set up here. This is a hydraulic roller cam that's a boost profile from Butler, and on top I've got comp cam solid roller lifters. So more or less, it's a little bit, I don't know if you know this, but on a hydraulic roller, the ramp's a little softer. It's not quite as insane. But by running the solid lifters on top, I'll be sure to have like, you know, great valve control high up into the RPM range. It'll just be like a little bit more time here and there. You know, got to maintain them more. Solid lifters, more like, you know, real race car stuff. Just blast the valve covers off once in a while, make sure the lash is right, and these things will be good to go.
Click, clack.
Click, clack. It'll rev happily to 7,000, but probably stop making power at 63, 60 something. You know, I like a little buffer zone if I'm in there hitting the pedal. You know what I'm saying? You know what I got like 19. If you guys need some more, we're gonna just start a water pump gasket shop. Because our gasket kit came with 11, and then our water pump came with 2 more. So Pontiac water pump is a moderately complex, maybe overly complex design. There is a water pump housing, 2 water tubes with big O-rings that are flat and receive this mid plate. Then there's a gasket and then the water pump. And if the clearance between all of them isn't exactly tight, you won't get the flow you need. So I saw a guy on YouTube do this, and he was wearing a Butler Performance hat. So I feel like he knows what he's doing. And he said, put a little bit of ultra black on both sides of every gasket. So that's what I'm doing. Again, he was wearing a Butler hat. I feel like he's the guy. I've got these sleeves in here, new O-rings in them. Essentially, that's gonna go out to the heads. Water's gonna come in here, around, get sucked in by this impeller, and then shoved out those holes through the mid plate. It's in that. Push the bolts through. There you go, there you go. That's what I'm talking about. Well, you gotta anti-seize those. Putting stainless into aluminum. You gotta use anti-seize on that or it's gonna gall up. Stainless bolts, which everybody loves to use on hot rods because they don't rust. You stick them into aluminum like this housing. You gotta put anti-seize on it. It's next to me. It's over here. Use this if you ever want to take them out again. Which honestly I don't really want to do, but I'm gonna use it anyway.
Set a good example.
Yeah.
Why stop sharing?
How we doing?
Perfect.
Okay, I like to hear that.
Perfect.
We're dialed.
We're dialed, baby. Oh, did I not tell you what Stay Tuned is all about? This is me in my shop outside of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, just building like down and dirty, fun cars with my friends. We'll do hot rods, muscle cars, probably some imports, diesel trucks, turbo stuff, whatever it takes to have fun. Most of them probably won't look as stunning as this thing. It doesn't matter. We're just here to have fun with cars. I didn't even think about it. It's our first time on Hagerty. We're super stoked to be here. You're gonna see a bunch of familiar faces here, some new faces. Everybody lends a hand. It's just a bunch of people having fun in the shop. Sometimes it's gonna be late. It's nighttime already. You can hear the crickets, but it's just all about having fun here. Let me show you some of these dudes we've dragged out. This is Zach. Zach, tell me your Instagram name.
At the real Slim Zimmy on all socials.
Yes, Zach is awesome. Zach's 11 years old. He's been with us about a month. He's awesome. He's actually incredible fabricator, welder. He does it all. This is my buddy Mike Edwards. You've probably seen him on HRG with me before. We've been boys for 20 years at this point.
I don't know who's luckier.
Yeah, exactly. He went out and got a real job, but I drag him back into this world all the time because he's a killer wrench, awesome dude, and a pretty damn good driver. Don't tell him I said that. This is Michael Barblanardo. I don't know if you caught this, but spin your camera around. Show him yourself. That's Michael Russo. We're gonna come back to him. That's Michael Edwards, and this is Michael Barblanardo. Michael's specialty is wearing the same shirt as me, most days.
Most days.
But yeah, this is our,
he runs shirt.
But yeah, he runs everything. You are a producer extraordinaire, but really just down and wanted to come and work on race cars, and we all had to get square jobs to keep it going. So that's what's happening. Boom.
Let's do this one.
Michael's specialty is emails. This dude rocks an email like you wouldn't believe.
We're rolling.
We're rolling. All right, one last dude. He normally holds the camera. He's the king of all things video. It's Michael Russo. One more mic.
Yep, one more mic.
That's right. And let's talk about what a car dude you are. What is your daily driver?
Suzuki Alto.
That's like a 15.
1993.
How much does that weigh?
1,300 pounds-ish.
Where do they sell it?
Japan.
Japan only. All right, what else do you have?
E36 M3, an ambulance,
Yep, an ambulance in case things go awry.
and 2 JSL that you built.
That's true. Yep, that's a pretty serious. No, I can't do that. Oh, damn, you hold it. That's a pretty serious car guide. So we're all doing it here. Everybody's fully committed. All right, so let me give you a rundown on these heads. I hand ported these, Larry at Roberts Engine Development, cleaned them up just a little bit. Larry fitted a set of Ferrea valves, 211 intake valve, that's stock size on this head, and upped the 166 to 177 inch on the exhaust. These are stainless valves. This is all comp cam stuff here, comp push rod guides, 7/16 rocker studs, proper dual valve springs, retainers, keepers, the whole bit. And then we're gonna run a 2-piece Smith Brothers special oil restricted push rod to make sure the oil stays in the bottom of the motor, and when you're revving on it for a long time, it doesn't all just pump up into the heads and starve the bearings and hurt this thing. So all good stuff. I'm ready to rock and put it all together. Mike's gonna paint this one. Oh, I'm feeling refreshed, rejuvenated. My girls were here. I've got 3 little daughters, and they were here running around like maniacs for the last hour. Doing some artwork on the pistons and generally causing havoc. So it's awesome to see them. They keep me stoked. They're one of the reasons I don't spend a ton of time in Los Angeles anymore, and I want to stay here in PA making shows and having fun.
Okay. Listen to this.
I'm installing these ARP head studs. Again, this thing's gonna make boost, which means more cylinder pressure, and we wanna make sure this thing is sealed up nice and tight. So we're gonna run a Cometic multi-layer head gasket and these ARP studs, just to make sure this head stays on when there's all that boost pressure and cylinder pressure in here. I like what we're doing here, this little dance. This is fun. All right, these Cometic gaskets, this is a multi-layer head gasket. It's actually got a sealing surface blended in here, applied, so you just drop it on and attach it dry, make sure that the sealing surfaces on the head and the block are clean, and then we're gonna send this thing home. There it is, beautifully machined piece.
Nice and flat.
There it is, and make sure it goes over the dowels. Russo, make sure you edit that to make it look like it went right on. All right, one piece. This is clean.
Yeah,
You give it a wipe.
I did. Same time I did that.
All right, let's do it. Up, up, up. Oh, easy. That's it. Hold on.
There it is. Is that it?
Yep. Hold on, you're not on the pin here. Let's get all these on the dowel. You're fine. It's just the head gasket came up off the dowel. You're fine. Can you come down?
I mean,
There it is.
I usually put the studs in. Ow. After the head.
You can do that. We'll try that next time.
Yeah, that's.
Boom.
Boom.
So on the Pontiacs, there's going to be a freeze plug. The heads are the same side to side, but once they install a freeze plug, there is a front to back. The water port, there's like a water port that goes across the front of the intake manifold, so make sure that your head is open on this end. And if not, you'll have to take it out and swap it side to side or move the freeze plug, and that's a pain in the butt. All right, so now we're just going to lay down a special torquing compound that comes with the ARP hardware. It's like a grease to make sure that when you tighten everything down, everything can move happily and smoothly so your torque ratings are exact.
In uniform. Yeah.
Uniform. Well, we're not Pontiac experts, but we're figuring this out as it goes along. There's 3 different lengths of head stud. Regulars, very short, kind of shorts. That's all right, we're getting it going. There are 3 different lengths, so make sure once you put everything in, you have a look, and you've probably got about 5/8 of an inch of threads sticking out, then you're in business. We're gonna torque these down, I think, to 110 in 3 easy steps.
3 easy steps. No angles, just torques.
Nah, this is old school, baby. So I went on the Butler website. They have a nice little diagram, torque order sequence, they call it. It's very
Is it just in and out?
straightforward. It's just up. It's like beep, boop, 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 boop. But I'm still gonna look at it because again, I'm not. This show is not that serious. We're not gonna act like we know everything about everything. We learn plenty of stuff. We look at the internet for plenty of stuff. We know, we've been around, but
Yeah, you know concepts.
yeah,
You need to get specifics.
you got it. But it is just going across.
Yeah.
So I'm running 1.5 ratio comp, super nice roller rocker. And what I need to do, because this is a guide plate engine, is you have to dial in exactly where this guide plate sits, because its job is to guide the push rod and keep it in line with this rocker tip up and down its stroke. So I'm just gonna sit this on here, make sure this thing is happy, kind of finger tighten down the push rods, lift the rockers off, lock them all down at 55 foot-pounds. Then I'm gonna just be able to assemble everything pretty happily. Then we'll talk about valve lash in a minute once this is all in. Good. Perfect.
There it is.
Look at that. That's a V8. We got the V going on now. Yeah. You're gonna do awesome. So we are now all dialed in. We're setting the valve lash. This is a solid lifter setup. So it is super important you set the lash instead of preload like on a hydraulic lifter. I'm setting it to 0.010 of an inch. Cold, David Butler told me to set it to 0.008 hot. I think this thing's gonna expand with iron block and an iron heads. They're basically gonna expand at the same time as they heat up. But just to be safe, I'm going a little bit loose. We'll get it fired up, warm it up, and then I'll dial it back in again to 0.008. And this is the kind of thing, if you're gonna run a solid lifter car, you gotta do every few thousand miles. But this is not a daily driver. Look at this. Yeah. Look at this magnificent unicorn. We're gonna be under the hood of this thing more than we're gonna be probably in the seats. So no holds barred, full race car, weirdo stuff. Let's go. Everything's gonna warm up, change a little bit, break in a little bit. So we're just gonna let it run loose for 25 minutes on the dyno, and then we'll dial these in.
Yeah, once you get the brake and oil out.
Yeah.
Watch that.
Wow, I probably put on too much here.
There's a little bit, I would say
There's a little bit of extra.
Ready for this? Beauty package in 1, 2, do it. It's time now to take the hood off. Larry is modifying our intake manifold. We futzed with it last night. It did not want to sit down straight. Gotta go in now, man. Come on, that's all she's got.
Yeah, there's nothing.
Nothing.
My thought is this. You're not gonna like it.
Don't
You gotta
say.
take more off of that intake.
Wow, it's a family show.
Alright, we're down here.
He is taking 50 thousandths off each side, or a 16th of an inch, excuse me.
16th, yep.
Off each side, and we think that'll bolt right on. But we're not gonna wait for that. We got no time for that. We're dynoing tomorrow. So engine's getting lifted up, flywheel, transmission, all that stuff's going on. This thing is going in the car. This car hasn't had an engine in it since since Pearl Jam was on the radio, basically. So let's do it.
Pearl Jam could be on the radio now.
I know, whatever. Since Pearl Jam was #1 in the charts.
That's number 1 in my book.
Okay, I don't know, you're such a PJ fan over here. We're gonna take off our stick valve covers soon, I'll get them wrecked. My boy Michael Edwards had to go back to real life. He's like got a real job in Manhattan or whatever.
I'll be back.
Supercharger coming soon. It's gonna be the best. I've never owned a blower car, driven a couple, but like a proper old school 671, 871.
It's nothing like all the torque.
I mean, I've driven, blast me a little bit. Project X with that blower on it was cool. But like, look, you're sitting in there, a big old supercharger, 2 carburetors on top plus a scoop. You're like here and you're rumbling down the road. And then anything that happens over here doesn't matter. Don't worry about it. Because you have no idea, you can't see it at all. Especially this thing, it's gonna sit. We did the math, I did quick finger math. So I'm calling the motor mount, blower, probably sit here, carburetors, maybe here. So I'm coming over here, I'm gonna say The height gonna be about approximately here. Approximately here, sticking out of the hood. For the yeah, it's gonna be good. Gonna put it up now, knock the pilot bushing into it, flywheel, bell housing, check the run out, clutch, transmission, stick it in the car. That's a milestone right there. All right, so this was a 4-speed car originally, so it would have had what's called a pilot bearing or bushing in it, but this is the aftermarket crank, the Eagle crank we got from Butler as part of their stroker kit. So you have to install, if you're gonna run a manual transmission, a pilot bearing. They either look like this, either a sealed or open bearing, or it's a bushing. The point of this is that when you put the clutch in, the tip of the transmission is still sitting in here spinning, and now it's gonna become a different speed than the motor. Once you let the clutch back out, everything's gonna sync up, but it takes the load off that thing so you can actually shift through the gears. If it was hanging up and still connected here, it makes it really tough to shift. And if you have an automatic, you don't want anything in here because the snout of the torque converter is gonna sit and live in there. So if you're doing a swap, this is one of the things you have to do.
Up a little bit.
Yeah, just give me a little skim coat right on that inner register. So you get a socket that only touches the outer race because you don't want to wreck the bearing's ability to spin. Feels good. It's in there. Let's move on. This is our cart of 4-speed goodness. This is a Muncie M22 Rock Crusher transmission. It's like the strongest thing that came on a stock car for GM. It's got an auto gear aftermarket case. I would assume it will hold about 600 horsepower. This engine eventually is going to make probably a lot more than that. So we will eventually upgrade, but that's what we're rocking for now. I got a Lakewood transmission, Hayes clutch, Hurst shifter, all good things. We'll talk about them as we cram them on there. This thing goes on very first. Beauty. All right, that is a Hayes SFI rated flywheel. All this stuff is SFI rated, which means we want to take it drag racing. We are legal and good to rock. So it's important. And if you're going to be doing crazy launches with a bunch of traction, you can very easily explode the clutch in your car. And you want this to keep all the parts inside so that they're not, cutting your ankles off.
Yeah.
Or like blowing
Insert
through.
that clip here.
Yeah, blowing through the
Seen
front
that
of your
one
car,
before.
any of that stuff. You do not want to be running away from a clutch inside your car.
No.
You do not want it in there chasing you around.
Bolts are over there. We need some Loctite.
Before we get too aggressive, do not use red Loctite. Right? Let's go blue. You want to go red? You can do red.
It's not that I always use red.
Go ahead, use red. Fine. Permanent. Got it started? Mm-hmm. Good, all right.
Sorta. That one's a little snug.
There it goes.
That's how you do it.
I just snugged it up with a gun. I'm gonna check the torque spec on it. My guess, 85. Let you know in a minute. Mm-hmm. Then we're going to 95 foot-pounds. I guessed 85. Pretty close. Okay. That's good. Ready to rock. We will wipe this off. Anytime you work on a friction surface for brakes or a clutch, like a rotor or a flywheel or the pressure plate, it gets packed with oil on top of it so it doesn't rust when it's sitting on the shelf. You got to come in with acetone, brake cleaner, whatever, wipe it off, and then you can install your parts. All right, it's clutch time now. After you put your flywheel on and you have a Lakewood or QuickTime bell housing, you want to put it on and dial indicate it to make sure that the run out is less than 0.005 of an inch. Essentially, that means that the thing is centered. It's going to make your transmission shift as smoothly as possible. We've already done that. We're definitely in spec. And now we're going to put on our Hayes Street 650 clutch. This is a full metallic clutch. It's like a puck clutch, essentially. But it does have a sprung hub, so it's a little bit easier to drive on the street. But it's going to be very serious. We're going to rock that. This is the pressure plate again. I'm going to hit this with some acetone. Flywheel side. It's going to be the flat one. We're going this way. It's an 11-inch clutch. It's supposed to hold 650 horsepower. So We'll call that enough for now. So we gotta just find where these all line up. And now we make the sandwich.
I like sandwiches.
I do like sandwiches too. We're gonna take this down to 25 foot-pounds. And one thing I like to do, obviously you're gonna move all over kind of in an X pattern to pull it down evenly. But I kind of like wiggle this thing and hold it just when I get started.
What size is that?
So to make sure that the disc is centered. Looks to be a 1/2 inch. You got it? Mm-hmm. Now the bell housing goes on for good, but in our case, we are going to run this American Powertrain hydraulic clutch setup. So there's a little bit of measuring and setting up to be done. All right, so this is the hydraulic throwout bearing from the American Powertrain hydraulic kit. Essentially, you step on the pedal, a bunch of brake fluid gets crushed in here. This thing expands, rides out, and depresses the clutch and releases it so you can shift gears. So what we need to do now is we're bolting on the bell housing. We're gonna check the distance from the plate here to the face of the clutch, the fingers, and then we'll measure from here to here. And what we're trying to do is get it to a point that we know inside the transmission, the face of the throwout bearing sits about between 100 and 200 thousandths of an inch away from those fingers. That way it has enough room that it can release fully, even if it's warm and things are expanding. And it still is close enough that when this thing strokes out, it will fully release the clutch. Fully engaged, fully released, that's what we're going for. And I don't know if you know this, but as clutches wear down, the clutch fingers will actually start to rest inward more. So you want to make sure this is exactly dialed right. The ideal is 150 thousandths, so we're going to try to get it close. A tip, when you do this, make sure that your feed line and return line are dialed in and connected to that hydraulic throwout bearing. This was more like a cautionary tale, like a after school special of what could happen. Hold on, one question. Well, how are we going to connect to that thing? Do we have that line already on? What's coming out the firewall over here?
We should have connected it to this and then connected to the firewall.
Attaboy.
That pilot bearing. Those are just...
We're rolling in, right?
Yeah.
Okay, snug. Hold it. Now we're good. Look at that thing.
You know what this means.
I know, it's time to put it in. All right, we're gonna lay in these old school white blackjack headers that came with the car. We're gonna run them on this for now. Just gonna kind of sit them in a spot. There it is. I think where we can get them in and bolted up. Just kind of laying them. That's probably just about right on.
Pretty close.
It is time to finally put this Butler stroker motor into the car. I can feel the weight. I can feel the weight of this thing on the hoist. All right, we've got our Butler 462 cubic inch stroker motor sitting in the Firebird for the first time ever. We have solid Butler mounts. We had to fight with them for quite a bit because it's got to be like exactly precisely lined up to get the bolts through. There's no give at all in them, but it's in there, it's sitting down. This car has an engine for the first time in 30 years. It's after midnight, I'm going to sleep. All right, so we came back in and we did a few things, as you can see, and it's time to fire this thing up.
Okay.
Hit it. Just kidding. You're going to have to stay tuned for the next episode. We are going to get this 462 fired up, and then we're going to take it to the dyno and see what kind of horsepower it can make without the blower. See you there.